Hi, welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is Monday, June 15th. And in an effort to share some different perspectives during this unprecedented time, I've invited a photographer I represent, Tim Tatter, and his producer, Dahlia Weidmann. Tim and Dahlia produced and shot 5 shoots over the last 3 weeks and have 1 more scheduled for this week and 2 commercial shoots for next week. They're estimating jobs and learning how to create content within the COVID-19 protocols. So I thought it would be helpful for our listeners to hear about their experiences doing so. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Hi, it's so nice to have you guys on the other side of this.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice to be a part of this.
Thanks for agreeing. I'm glad I didn't have to twist your arm too much.
No, never.
Well, Tim, I know you were busy during quarantine, hosting Art for Assistants, doing lots of Instagram lives, webinars for your clients, and you even started a YouTube channel focusing on the business of photography. You obviously filled your time when you weren't shooting, but now that you are shooting again, how does it feel?
I felt that I never worked as hard as I'd worked when I was in quarantine, to be honest. I felt like it was a different type of work. And it was very difficult. It was a lot of initiatives, a lot of really long hours. I built a new website, actually 2 new websites during that time as well. So I just put my nose down and just worked. And I think that's just kind of how I problem solve. And I think quarantine presented a huge problem. And so I wanted to solve it. So I worked as hard as ever. And now that it's we're shooting again, I'm completely inspired in a different way and actually glad to not be doing as many initiatives, but spending more time doing what I'm used to doing, which is, creating amazing images.
And do you feel like everything you did during that time kind of set you up for like a whole new mindset while you're shooting now?
I think so. I think what I learned is I learned so much more about my business because I didn't have anybody here to support me where, in the office, so to speak. And so I learned about I learned about doing a lot of the nuts and bolts. I learned about the day-to-day more. And I think that really helped. But I think that, all the creative things that I did, like building a new website, getting a bunch of projects organized, to release new work once the dust settled, so to speak. I think I positioned myself very well for success coming out of it. But I think that it also sort of gave me an opportunity to feel like I turned back the time to a time when I wasn't as pulled in so many different directions, from the standpoint of being on calls all day or planning one shoot after the next, where you're constantly talking to different departments and different people about different layers of a project. So I think that slowing it down and putting me in charge of all the departments again was really nice. So for example, I did a lot of shoots that coming out of quarantine, I did a lot of shoots where I just needed to get out and create. And I became all the departments, i.e. like wardrobe, hair and makeup, post-production, all the aspects of it, in order to just get it done. Because when we came out of quarantine, or we were starting to come out of quarantine, it was like, how are we going to work? We can't have all these people on set. Like, what can we do? And I just was like, well, let's see what we can do. And I just went out and did it. And sort of rewinded the clock back to when I started, when I was all the departments again. It was quite empowering. It really was unique.
How about you, Dahlia? I mean, you as a producer, I've been saying since the beginning here that, we're in an industry where, of course, we're going to figure it out. We're producers. We are resourceful. We know what we're doing. And we know, we don't ever want to say no. And I know you didn't really skip a beat either, but how does it feel for you to be actually producing photo shoots again?
It feels great. The situation is obviously unprecedented. We've never dealt with something of this magnitude before, and it's really changed everything and how we look at our approaches. I felt like I did wear a lot of hats during quarantine, and in such a different way. And like Tim was saying, we were so busy, and I was helping out with the marketing side and Art for Assistants and, getting us funding. And it just, now that we're finally back into production mode, I feel like I'm back doing what I love. But it was hard. It was hard to get to this point because it's been a little overwhelming with all the information that's out there right now of how to go back to shooting
Yeah.
safely.
Well, let's talk about that for a second because, on top of all the support you gave to Tim and the studio with, all the initiatives he had, you also had to kind of absolutely had to keep your finger on the pulse of what was going on the production side and learn everything you needed to know about all the protocols. And I know there's so much to understand, and wondering where you got all your information from.
Yes, I felt like every single day there was a new email, there was a new webinar, there was such an influx of information that it was really hard to navigate through all of it. And every single day was just something different to learn. I watched a lot of webinars. I would listen to your webinar for Where Are We Now, which was super helpful. We obviously had our group webinar with, another producer and our team. Listened to APA, ASMP. I took the OSHA Safety and Health Production Infection Control certification. Also been following the white papers that were submitted in Hollywood on what they're doing. So with that, we've put together a very big PDF of all the things that we should be doing. And I've basically been updating it every day. As more information comes out, I keep updating it, adding to it, adjusting it, just so it's as compliant as it can be, given all the information that's been released at this point.
Well, and given how much you guys are shooting and producing, you must feel confident that you're prepared right now. Do you?
I do, but it's difficult because, we can't just show up on set and hug our friends.
Yeah.
Everything has changed. We're all wearing such different hats now, like having a safety compliance officer on set and a set medic, and making sure that when people show up to set, they're getting their temperatures taken, and we're handing out PPE and making sure everybody's keeping their distance, and we're cleaning and disinfecting. I mean, the list goes on and on of what we have to do. And also just reminding people, this is a new normal that we have to face. And as much as you want to be able to talk to the talent while you're doing hair and makeup, we can't do that. And it's hard. And I think that's going to take some time for everyone to get used to it.
Yeah. I know as things kind of open up, you find yourself kind of lulled into like, oh, I'm wearing a mask. Oh, I can go here. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're acting like you normally did, and you just can't. It's not safe.
Right. And that's why we have to have a dedicated person on set that understands all of the requirements or recommendations from the CDC and OSHA. And that is their main job. They're literally there to educate the team on how to keep their distance, how to clean and disinfect, how to properly wear their PPE or remove gloves if they have to. So it's going to be very bizarre for a long time.
And does that exist yet? Does that role exist yet? Like, are you finding people who can do that?
Yes.
That's
well,
good.
But Tim, go on.
Yeah. Let me interject there because look, we did those 5 shoots to be intentional in the fact that we knew things were going to change. We knew that our systems had to change. And to have all the protocols and all these documents that we've made and other people have made and shared and saying, this is how we're going to do things. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to do it. And then in doing it, it's another thing to see how the people that you're asking to do it react and respond and participate, because it requires participation and telling a grip or a gaffer or a tech or a hair and makeup artist that they have to behave a certain way and actually having them behave a certain way are 2 totally different things. Because one, they've been doing these jobs for careers, lifetimes, and they're accustomed to a certain way of operating. And now we're asking them to operate completely differently. And I think that's something that we have seen and learned. And then the idea of having that person on set who their job is to sort of babysit people, where their title is like health and safety officer, but what they're really doing is making sure people are following the protocols, is new too, because they're going to be stretched all over the place, because being able to see things and then interacting with things, it's a little bit like whack-a-mole, where they're going to be putting out a fire on one side of the set, then immediately going to another side of the set and sort of directing traffic there. And so these are not only like, there's this great relaxing of people's mindset in social distancing and mask wearing, and it's becoming almost political. Like, certain people are like, this is no big deal. Other people are deathly afraid. Like, there's a gamut of the people involved and how they're taking it. And you know what? Not a single one of them owns the business except for you, right? And so it's your production, you're on set, and a grip or a gaffer might have a political stance where they don't believe this is a big deal and it's all an overreaction, and they're not going to wear a mask and they're not going to stay socially distanced. And yet, from the liability standpoint, it's our responsibility to enforce, and create a safe set for everyone. And we've seen that to be problematic, even from a client side. So on our shoot that we did at a hospital with COVID patients, and not COVID patients, but doctors that have been treating COVID patients and healthcare responders, and all the like, we had people at the shoot refusing to wear masks, wanting to shake people's hands, violating social distancing. And so even at the core of it, at a place where you would think I would have the utmost respect for the process, a hospital, you're seeing a breakdown in procedure. And so I think that it's one thing to have the concept and have the protocols. Doing 5 shoots has shown me that it's a little more tricky than just making a PDF.
Let's back up for a second, because I think each shoot that you did is unique. And I know that you did them to, learn from, obviously learn what was in front of you in terms of production and trying to put into place these protocols and see the reality of them unfold. Tell us about the projects so that everybody can kind of get an idea about what it is that you produced, and maybe just take us a little bit. And Dahlia, maybe you can chime in too with some things that you learned on each shoot, or, what insights came out of them.
So from my perspective, the very first shoot I did was a humor concept shoot. And, saying that right now after the Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd murder and, what's transpired, a concept humor shoot was not, we were at a time at May 20th that we needed a laugh. And so I wanted to create a series of images that I thought were funny, because we were all sort of, in the thick of doom and gloom, and we were just starting to open up. And so I mobilized my friends and just shot my friends and their kids. So people in my social bubble, so to speak, I had them come by my studio, and it was just me and a hair and makeup artist that was on my payroll from our Paycheck Protection Program. And so I brought her into the program, and Dahlia had organized and arranged all the safety protocols, all the PPE, all the processes, how we're going to do things, and just the two of us, myself and the makeup artist, set up everything and went through all the processes that we have. And my friends came through, and it was shoot around masks. So it was very simple. And that was the first time we shot. And we learned then and there that, some of my friends didn't care and some of my friends, did care. And when I would say, hey guys, like, you're in my business, you're in my place of work, there are other people coming, I need you to wear a mask, here's your hand sanitizer, I need you to sanitize. We wiped everything down after they left, after individuals left, and we sort of rotated all these people through. And, you started to gain the gauge of like people that wanted to participate and didn't want to participate in safety. And so that was surprising. They were there, their kids were there, and it was just more of like, hey, this is how we're handling things. Please respect the process. And then the next shoot we did was with seniors, because I wanted to shoot this sort of concept of the seniors being isolated and being scared and sort of being away from, people, because they're most vulnerable group. And I wanted to also see whether or not talent would show up, whether seniors would actually come and show up and be a part of a shoot. And so we had a couple seniors come by our studio. Again, small crew, just myself and a makeup artist, but with professional talent. And with professional talent comes the roles of, really being diligent and practicing all the best practices.
Oh, excuse me for a second. Dahlia, how did you find this talent? Like, did you guys have to do a live cast over Zoom, or was it just head sheets through email, or what was your process?
So we reached out to local talent agencies directly, and we just asked them, hey, do you guys feel comfortable having your talent shoot at this point? And almost every single agency we reached out to said yes. There was one agency that was not okay at the time to have any of their talent shoot, but for the most part, they were all excited to get back out there. And I just asked for packages from them. So they sent me portfolios of the individual talent, and then I asked for current digitals to see what they actually looked like that day. So we didn't have any surprises, but we got some pretty great options. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but was pleasantly surprised.
Great. Okay, Tim, sorry, you can go back to describing the shoot.
Oh, no worries. It was great. Look, like there was some concept. I wanted a senior for one of the mask shoots, but I didn't want them to come the same day that all the kids and everybody came. So first shoot, I had like 10 people. And then this next day I had 4 people, or did we have 5? I can't even remember. A handful of individuals. And it was great to see their perspective because, the seniors have been so locked away, including my mother and my father. And, there's this great sense of fear in that community because of how deadly COVID is to that, or coronavirus is to that community. So it was great to see it. And the images were, it was very simple, but super effective and super powerful. And so happy with how that turned out. And then the next shoot I did again was also with sort of professional talent, so to speak. But this time I had nobody, no hair and makeup, no support staff. It was really these 2 TikTok influencers that I knew that are professional influencers and professional social media personalities. They just hit me up on social media because, we often commented on each other's work, and they were like, we're bored. We want to shoot. And I was like, I'm bored. I want to shoot. And so we just got together on a Sunday and shot. And it was great. But, they did their own hair and makeup because they're literally pros. And all they do for a living is create content. So that was a much different affair. And because it was on a Sunday and with nobody, it almost felt just like life was normal. It was almost just a bunch of friends getting together. But at the same time, it was just really interesting to be. It was the first time I'd ever shot, really, I think, in 15 years in a studio setting by myself, like nobody else, just me and the talent. And it really took me back in time, and it was super empowering. It was super, it felt so good just to be able to create and have nobody involved in the process except for myself and the subject. So it was quite interesting.
Do you see a world where you think that might happen more, where a client would actually hire you to do what you do without the live streaming and the remote capture and the pre-production and all that sort of stuff? Or do you just see that being a personal shoot situation?
No, I hope so. I always have hoped so. I've always wished that clients would at sometimes would just, they hire me based on the images of that type. They see work like the work that I created with these TikTokers, and they want that. And yet that was made, with no budget and nobody around. And then the challenge becomes there's so many stamps and so many layers of approval that by the time it gets the camera, it's no longer that. It's no longer the pure sort of creation. It's been stamped with so many other levels that me as the creative get kind of taken away from the process a bit. And what I mean by that is that they put so many restrictions along the way that getting that pure collaboration with the talent is sometimes lost. So I don't know. I don't know, I know that I can do it and can be extremely effective that way, and would love to have the opportunity to do that type of work again.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting. The idea of how important creative flexibility would be in that process and really letting a client hand it over to you, I think would be pretty amazing. And I'm just wondering if maybe with all of their experiences with user generated content and having to be remote, maybe things will loosen up a little bit in that respect and they might be more open to it. That would be exciting.
It would be super exciting, but I think that at the end of the day, people need approvals, and during that
Mm,
approval process, that's where I think it breaks down a little bit.
yeah.
But yet, who knows? Like, it only takes one person to be like, have at it. And at the same time, like this world that we're in right now, where everybody's working remotely, I think people are willing to try new things because if you had told everybody that they were going to work remotely for 4 months and be more productive, people would have said you're crazy. But I think
Hmm.
we've proven to ourselves that people are less stressed. They're more excited about what they're doing. They're creating amazing collaborations through Zoom and through other things. So who knows? I'd like to see that. I'd like to see more of that happening.
What about the other two shoots after the TikTok influencers? What were the last two that you produced?
The next one we produced a sort of a fashion fitness test. So much of what I do is sort of in studio sport fashion, and we have a sport fashion shoot coming up next week that I wanted to try out sort of a lighting and a look for, and I wanted to try out like, okay, we've done all these small shoots. Let's do a real shoot. Let's do a 10, 12 person on set shoot with wardrobe and hair and makeup and professional talent and a safety officer and all those things, right? Let's put our protocols through an actual shoot and see how we hold up and see how much we can accomplish. Because we're setting schedules now based on a new protocol, right? And so we need to make sure that we can actually do these shoots based on this because we've done them. And here's what we learned. And so that was our next shoot, the fairly large shoot, but still not massive, but one of scale. And we shot each talent for an hour and a half. We shot 3 talent. We loaded in and loaded out in the same day, meaning no pre-light. We loaded equipment into a studio, set it up, shot, and loaded out. And so that was the the dry run, let's say. That was the dress rehearsal for our shoots next week, just so that we're super buttoned up and we're delivering the highest quality product on the safest possible environment.
Dahlia, did you share I mean, obviously you did, but your safety protocols up with everybody up front, right?
I did. Yeah.
I would imagine everybody was very open to it and, was agreeable, but is that
Hmm.
correct?
Yeah. And I think so, there really wasn't any pushback. There were certainly a lot of questions and conversations I had with our hair and makeup artist and also the wardrobe stylist because they're the ones that are in the closest proximity to the talent for the longest period of time. So, that's obviously a little more of a risk. And I went through the PPE that they should have and be using throughout the day, how they should be steaming and disinfecting the wardrobe, using individual brushes and palettes for each talent for hair and makeup, wearing a face shield, N95 mask, all those things. So that was just super clear of what is required of them to make sure that the talent feels safe and that the artist feels safe, of course.
And did they have any questions for you that they didn't already? I mean, I'm imagining they're all doing their own research and have their own set of protocols and their own requirements for safety. But what sort of questions did they have for you?
So the hair and makeup artist actually wanted to make sure that because we were doing a fitness shoot, if she needed to rub down any oil or lotion on their body, she obviously can't do that with gloves on. She wanted me to find out and make sure that the talent were okay with that because that's, of course, skin to skin contact.
Hmm.
And they were fine with it. And then also just giving me some recommendations on how the talent should show up, coming with a base layer of foundation, very clean, dry hair because they weren't doing any blow drying. We're not doing that for however long at this point. So yeah.
Okay, so you now have two more shoots next week. Both of them are commercial shoots. They're not test shoots. And you've had all these great dress rehearsals. What are you guys taking with you to the next shoot, to those two shoots that you learned from these, right? Because you knew it all in practice. I mean, on paper, but now you got a chance to practice it. So what are you going to take with you on those two shoots that are really important from what you learned?
I think the main thing that I'm going to take is that the role of the sort of safety officer is essential, that person not only does their job, but understands that their job is not going to be easy. And I think we all are in theory of, and again, that's the one thing that I've really seen is that everybody has has an opinion, but as a business owner and someone who creates a safe set, their opinions are not relevant. These are our protocols, and they have to follow them. And if they refuse to follow them, then we might have to determine whether or not they can actually stay, and we will have to make do without it. And I've been very much surprised with some of the pushback that we've gotten, and that for me, I think when we are expanding out these shoots, is going to be the most interesting aspect of production moving forward. Because I know my friend in Hollywood has started a department company, a health and safety department, as per the SAG guidelines. And theory versus reality are two different things. And in theory, it sounds pretty easy and straightforward. Getting people to do it is another thing.
It'll be interesting because, on the estimating side, it requires another person. And that means obviously more costs in the estimate. And it's also another person on set when we have a limited amount of people. And there have been a few jobs where people have asked me, do we really need that person? Because the clients haven't been on set, so they're not seeing this happen in person. But I think for anybody listening, especially based on your experiences, it's going to be really important to make sure that line item is in every bid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, and anybody who knows me knows how tight of a set I run, and how much I require that the focus is on the creative and on the process. And so that the people that I work with over the years are very much in tune with how I work, and they understand, like, for example, no cell phones on set. Like nobody, you're no Instagramming, no, checking your text, whatever. If you're on set, you're on set. Things of that nature. And that's really hard for people. Like, even on my set, it's really hard for people to get out of that compulsory behavior of like checking their phone every 2 minutes. Well, it's really hard for people not to go talk to their friend, right? They're friends, they're buddies, they work together, and they might leave the set and go get a burger together. But that's offset.
That's offset, yeah.
But on set, they need to stay 6 feet apart. And when you hear them chatting over your shoulder and you turn around and they're right next to each other, even with the safety officer, like you got to be like, hey guys, spread apart.
Yeah.
And remind them that, like, hey, the only way these protocols work is if you participate in them, right? Because I can tell you to be socially distant, but unless you're socially distanced, that is on you. You have to maintain your 6-foot barrier. I can't maintain it for you. And so those types of things are where people breaking those habits is where I've seen the struggle, is breaking those habits of one department going to talk to the next department. So, when hair and makeup wants to hang out with the grip because they've known each other for 20 years and they want to just sit over there and chat, that's hard to break that rule.
Yeah.
Because they've been on set so many times.
Well, it would also be good for you or the producer to not be the, heavy in that situation and have that safety officer be the one to enforce the rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. We're also taping off each department in colored tape and giving corresponding colored wristbands so that wardrobe stays in their wardrobe section, hair and makeup stays in their hair and makeup section, grips in theirs, Tim in his, and nobody goes into that area. And it's going to be really difficult to remember that. And also, if you're touching a piece of equipment, if someone else has to touch it, you have to disinfect it right away.
Yeah.
And it's going to take longer on set to do all these things. So we just can't get through as much.
And it requires a lot of pre-production as well, a lot of planning, not just on the client side, but on your actual production side. And I think anybody who's listening needs to recognize that, we need to be estimating for that time.
Absolutely.
And especially the producer's time, because, you and I know, Dahlia, we've done so many rounds of different versions of different estimates right now. And that even is taking longer right now and has to be accounted for.
Yeah. And I think educating our clients on, like you were saying earlier, they're not on set with us, so they're not seeing how tough this is. It's one thing to hear it over the phone or, through an email, but to actually witness it and see, wow, this really is taking more time than I anticipated.
The other thing I'm noticing with clients right now, too, on some other things that we're estimating is, there's lots of rounds of revisions, but then a lot of people aren't pulling the trigger because they're nervous. The clients are nervous. And I'm seeing that our production side is ready. They are prepared. They've been doing their homework. They have been doing their dress rehearsals. But the clients are just starting these conversations. I know on the webinars for a long time, we were asking people, are you talking to your clients about this stuff? And they're saying, no, we are not talking to our clients about this stuff yet. It's not relevant yet. So I feel like we are way ahead of where the clients are right now. And it really is up to us to continue to educate people. And I keep saying trailblaze, pioneer through this.
And if that means we need to be in those conversations, happy to.
That's why we've gone and done this. Now, the reality of it is that society's not following the protocols that we're being asked to follow. Socially, out in the public, people aren't following these protocols. There is, people are not socially distant. People are gathering, so there is the reality that we might be imposing an unrealistic protocols on a situation where outside of our world, it's just not happening.
It's not happening.
It would be different if this was happening everywhere and everybody was sort of on board. And so we're creating a space that is like compliant with society. But the reality is that society has moved on from coronavirus safety protocols. There's people aren't wearing masks in public, even in New York, even in these places that were devastated by it. People aren't doing what we're being asked to do. And so there is that very real reality that, for example, you're not required to wear a mask on a plane. You are required by some airlines to wear a mask, and by others, you're not. And so there is this very real situation that is developed that it makes it almost impossible to do the job. For example, the SAG bulletin wants you to get tested every single day before you come to set. Everybody, which how unrealistic and how unlikely is
That's not
that?
possible right now.
Right? It's absolutely impossible. And yet that's the expectation. So there's a lot of miscommunication that's out there. For me, I think it's our job to do the best job that we can to present the safest environment that we can. But it also requires that everybody that is participating be on that same page. And that means that when a grip or a gaffer touches something, that they have to wipe it down, right? Because the safety officer, the cleaning crew is not going to know what was touched and what wasn't touched, right? And so how are they possibly going to clean all the light stands, right? How are they possibly going to clean all the sandbags? It's impossible. So it requires the grip and gaffer to keep their hands clean and to wear their gloves and to wipe down their stuff. And that adds to their time. And whether or not they're doing that is a whole nother issue that is unpoliceable, really, because you'd have to have a person for every person on set just watching them and going behind them with cleaning. And so that these protocols that are self-established by the industry are somewhat unrealistic when you look at what and how they need to happen, right?
And we're also spending 10 hours inside a box with each other, so as we try to keep as much ventilation as we can by keeping the rolling doors open throughout the day and letting airflow come through. But, I was thinking about it before. We're going into grocery stores and, different retail shops, and nobody's making you take your temperature when you walk into the store. But at the same time, in our situation, we're around each other for so long throughout the day. So it makes sense. It's a lot to follow and remember.
Look, like we can, society is not following guidelines. And so, we can try and we can hope and we can do our best, but the reality of it is that it's a virus that's everywhere, and it would be like saying that we are going to protect people from getting the flu. And I know this is not nearly the same thing as the flu, but it's incredibly unrealistic to have such standards. Now, obvious things like removing all the craft and removing all the catering and all these like obvious touch points, like 100%. Keeping social distancing, that's something we should be able to control and people should respect. Like keeping people without milling around, absolutely. There's so much that we can do, and we should do that because that's reasonably associable. But like cleaning every C-stand, that's really not possible. Cleaning everything that anyone has ever touched, really not possible. Because to be 100% on that, it would require someone to be, Mensa-esque, to remember everything that they touch, because people touch everything, and whether they realize it or not. And so doing our best is what we have to do and what we have to strive for. And that's what I've asked my team to do, and that's what we're going to do. But we can't control what that person did the day before, whether they went to a party with 50 people and didn't socially distance, because we're not there with them, right?
Right.
And so we have no idea what they're bringing to set, because taking a temperature is no indicator of whether or not someone is
right. They could be asymptomatic.
100%.
Yeah, sense of 100%. False security.
Yeah, and when a doctor at a hospital who works in the ER room extends his hand to shake my hand, I'm like, yeah, sorry. And
right.
And it was a political. It's almost around political sort of allegiances. It's scary. So I have pretty strong feelings that I wanted to create a safe environment, and I want to create a safe set, and I want to do whatever I can. But I think that some of the rules that are being made are being made by people who don't have the real experience of being in the trenches to really make these rules. And so we need to be careful there. And that's why I did 5 shoots, is so I could really see what it's like. So I could really see what's realistic, and I could really see, like, do I feel safe? Because remember, I am there and I have my family there. Not my family there, but I have my family to worry about and concern myself, as I don't want to bring this back. So do I feel safe? And that's why I talked to the doctors as well. Like that was one of the really great takeaways, was that, speaking to frontline workers that are dealing with COVID patients and saying, like, do you feel safe, was a question I asked them. And they feel safe. And these are people in the room cleaning their mouths out of COVID patients, so that they look good, and incubating these people and doing these things like touching the virus, so to speak. Like they're right there all day working with these people. And they feel safe. And so I when you take the proper precautions, right? And I think when you look at what we're doing, I think that we should feel pretty good about what we're doing.
So let me explore something else with you. The idea of the communication channels on set when, next week when you're shooting remotely. That's not something I don't think you dress rehearsaled, kind of live streaming and remote capturing at that moment, because they were personal shoots. How are you planning on handling that next week?
We had, before the lockdown, the full stay-at-home order, we had shoots where we were live streaming because agency didn't travel, because New York was getting hit first and they weren't traveling. So we had an actual TV commercial, sort of a broadcast type commercial, as well as a still shoot over 3 days here in Southern California that we live streamed back to New York and went through that whole process. And so we feel pretty confident from learning from that experience over the 3 days. We had 3 days to really kick out a lot of kinks about, what worked and what didn't work, and how we could be more efficient and more effective. And we feel confident that we're going to take what we were doing on our third day and enhance that, because that worked well, and move forward that way. I think that the technology is amazing. It's out there. We're all very comfortable using it now. Remember, this was before everybody was doing Zooms.
Right.
That there was a little bit of a tech learning, but now we're fully up to speed.
And have you been having lots of conversations with your clients about kind of what that's going to look like for them, and how much of the shoot they're going to get to see, or are they going to get to see the whole shoot?
They'll see the whole shoot. We'll have a stream that's going back from the computer that they'll see every image that's being captured. In addition, they'll have a sort of a live camera seeing what we're seeing, so to speak. So that they're not only seeing the image, but they're seeing sort of the set. And they'll have a department cam where it essentially is a camera on a stand that rolls from department to department, showing the client's wardrobe and hair and makeup and things of that nature, things that they want to get approvals on.
Yeah, I think you're definitely have hit on something when you said, we're all so used to the technology now. All the other conversations I'm having on webinars and with art producers and other people about what that looks like, there's no hesitation. No one is thinking that it's something new or different, or, wondering how it's going to work. Everyone is very clear with what their expectations are, what they're going to get to see, and frankly, really appreciative that they can even attend and create content because of that technology.
Yeah, and I've never done so many Zoom calls in my life. And I feel like even just our pre-production calls, it's not just picking up the phone and chatting. It's a Zoom call, and it's nice because you get to see people's face and emotions, and it's unfortunate they can't be there with us, but they still feel like they are participating in the shoot with the way that we set it up.
Yeah,
and that makes them feel really good.
Well, before we end, I'd love to just know what you think agencies and clients can do now to prepare for what creating content is going to be like in the future. Because obviously you've done all the testing and the dress rehearsals, and you are starting to shoot and produce. And there's a lot of people, as I said earlier, who are behind us in that process, not just photographers and other producers, but I mean clients and ad agencies. So what should those teams be talking about and doing now to help them prepare and feel confident for being able to shoot in the future?
I think that we have to be realistic that coronavirus is all around us, and it's going to be around us till there's a vaccine. And shooting is no different than people going to a restaurant, which people are doing, going to a gathering at a friend's house, which people are doing. My kids are playing sports again. These are things like life is moving on. And I think doing shoots is part of that. People have jobs, they have careers, they have responsibilities, they have their social needs. And I think there really is no difference from us going to having a shoot and working together. It's probably safer than the fact that, my wife had 10 people over this weekend for a brunch, right? No masks were being worn. Nobody was cleaning up after everything. People were sharing food. They have to live. And on set, we're going to do all these things that people aren't even doing on a daily. And yeah. I think when these protocols were made, we were all deathly afraid staying at home, and nobody was going anywhere. And now society's opened up everywhere, right? Like there's going to be a rally with 20,000 people in Tulsa yelling and screaming. There's been 100,000 people in the streets in 22 major cities around the country for 2 weeks straight, yelling and screaming next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. So there is the very real reality that, are we looking at this through an optics of where we were 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago, and we created these protocols, which a lot of people have, to where we actually are now in a society that is sort of, yeah, well, I guess I'll wear a mask.
Although I would argue too that these protocols are also in place because they're important to you and you own the business, right?
And that's where I am on that.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I could have all the protocols in the world, but you know, if I do everything right in every protocol, that doesn't mean that I can guarantee someone's safety.
No.
Because I have no control whether that person takes off their mask and is talking to their friend on set and they're like, fuck the mask, I don't really care about the mask.
Right.
So I've created all these protocols, but it's up to each individual to be vigilant. It's up to each individual to take them seriously. And what I fear is that our society has moved on and people aren't being vigilant. And I've seen that firsthand on set in a place that I never thought would even have that even concern, where I thought a hospital and everybody that worked on a hospital and at a hospital would be on the same page.
How about you, Dahlia? What do you think, before we sign off here, agencies, like given everything we've talked about today, you know, clients and agencies should be doing and talking about and doing to prepare so that they feel comfortable with moving forward with production?
I think setting realistic expectations to the shot list and how many talent we have on set and educating clients on all the protocols we need to be taking is going to be really important, so that they do understand it's not like how it was before this, you know, COVID happened. We can't get 50 shots in a day with 10 talent. Like, we have to be very strict on our end to explain to clients and, you know, our agency clients what is possible at this point, so that we can adhere to the protocols and keep everybody safe.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, those are all the conversations that I'm having as well, too. And, you know, hearing clients and agencies asking those types of questions of us makes me think that they're starting to educate their client more, which is great. And hopefully it'll open up a little bit sooner. You know, we can all start shooting again.
I think we'd all love that. I think we have to, as a community, as a industry, to look at what's happening socially around us, and to not overly burden ourselves with unrealistic requirements that put us as an anomaly to, you know, daily life that's transpiring in offices, businesses. You know, companies are back to work. People in offices that aren't getting cleaned, where that someone isn't walking behind with a anti-sanitation and cleaning everywhere they go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's happening. And so, you know, we're putting these extremely difficult standards on us that I think, where I want to be safe, and I'm deathly afraid of COVID and getting COVID and transmitting COVID, because I've talked to people that have dealt with it, and I'm scared. So I want to create the safest possible place, but I also want to be realistic as to you know, what's really happening.
Yeah, my gosh, I feel like we could talk about this all day. And I think if I called you guys again tomorrow, we'd probably have a lot of other new things to talk about because it's all changing. So much. How many things do we email each other back and forth with something new?
For sure.
So true.
It's a very fluid world right now in many ways. And I think clients now more than ever need to go with operators and providers that are established, that know what they're doing, that are going to be responsible and professional, because the stakes are higher now than ever before. And that on that end, I feel confident that our studio has done the work to present the safest possible set that we can, but we can't guarantee safety. And a client that wants 100%, it's impossible. That's an unattainable goal in a global pandemic.
Yeah.
We're going to do the best that we can because we are as professional as they come. It's why I've done 5 shoots. It's why I went to a hospital to do first responders, because I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to talk to the nurses and the doctors who are dealing with coronavirus patients on the daily and hear it from them and hear what their feelings are, because they're in small hospital rooms all day dealing with these people. And so I wanted to get a gauge, and that's, they're getting up every day and doing it. I think we should be able to as well.
Well, this was super helpful. I really appreciate you guys being here and sharing all this information with our audience. I know they'll appreciate it as well. And I think once you guys have your shoots next week, we might need to have you back and hear more about how that went.
Love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy your afternoon, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.